I always thought my life with Clara was a tapestry woven with trust, each thread a promise we'd made under the oak tree where we exchanged vows 10 years ago. Our home in Portland, a quaint craftsman with ivy crawling up its sides, was our sanctuary. Clara, with her auburn hair and laughter that could light up a room, was the heart of it. I'm a structural engineer, meticulous by nature, analyzing blueprints for flaws, ensuring bridges don't collapse. I applied that same precision to our marriage, or so I thought. But even the strongest designs can hide hairline cracks. It started subtly. Clara's late nights at her graphic design firm, her phone buzzing at odd hours, her eyes darting away when I asked about her day. I chalked it up to stress, her passion for her work. We'd always been open, sharing everything from fears to dreams. Yet, as autumn painted the city in golds and reds, I felt a chill that wasn't just the weather. One evening, I found her sketching at the kitchen table, her focus intense. "New project?" I asked, leaning in. She flinched, slamming her sketchbook shut. "Just doodling," she said, her smile tight. I laughed it off, but the air felt heavy, like the moment before a storm. That night, I lay awake, her steady breathing beside me a stark contrast to the unease gnawing at my gut. I told myself I was overthinking, that love doesn't falter over a closed sketchbook. But doubt, once planted, grows roots. Weeks passed, and the unease became a shadow I couldn't shake. Clara's late nights multiplied, her excuses polished but vague. Client meetings, tight deadlines, team brainstorming sessions. I wanted to believe her, but my engineer's mind demanded evidence. One rainy afternoon, I was home early, the office quiet due to a power outage. Clara's car was in the driveway, unexpected since she'd texted about working late. I entered quietly, the house eerily still. Her coat was slung over the couch, her purse spilling its contents. Among the clutter, a receipt caught my eye. Dinner for two at La Lune, a romantic bistro we hadn't visited in years. The date was last Friday, when she'd claimed a solo work dinner. My pulse quickened. I pocketed the receipt, telling myself it was nothing, maybe a client treat. But the details gnawed. 2 glasses of Pinot Noir, her favorite. I didn't confront her, not yet. Instead, I watched. Her phone, once left carelessly on the counter, now never left her side. She'd laugh at messages, then tuck it away when I entered the room. I started checking her laptop when she showered, my fingers trembling as I scrolled through emails, finding nothing but work. Yet, the absence of proof felt like its own betrayal. I began to question my sanity. Was I inventing a narrative? But the receipt burned in my pocket, a tangible fragment of a truth I wasn't ready to face. The turning point came at a gallery opening Clara insisted we attend. A rare night out. Her firm had designed the event's branding, and she was radiant, mingling with artists and clients. I stood by, sipping wine, feeling like an accessory. Then I saw him, Elliot, a photographer whose work Clara admired. He was tall, with a disheveled charm, his eyes lingering on her as she laughed at his joke. Their ease was intimate, a language of glances and half-smiles that excluded me. I introduced myself, my handshake firm, searching his face for guilt. He met my gaze, unflinching, but his hand lingered on Clara's arm as he spoke. Later, I overheard a colleague mention Elliot's recent project, a collaboration with Clara. My stomach churned. At home, I asked casually about him. "Oh, Elliot's brilliant," she said, her voice too bright. "We're working on a series together." Her nonchalance felt rehearsed. That night, I couldn't sleep, replaying their interaction. I started digging, subtle at first, checking her firm's website, finding Elliot's portfolio linked to her projects. Then, a late-night impulse led me to her cloud storage, where I found a hidden folder. Inside were photos. Clara and Elliot, candid shots at a park, her head on his shoulder. My heart sank, the images a blueprint of betrayal. I didn't confront her. I needed more, a complete schematic of her deception before I acted. The photos were a catalyst, turning my suspicion into obsession. I became a detective in my own marriage, mapping Clara's movements. I installed a tracking app on her phone, disguised as a software update, my guilt overshadowed by the need to know. The app revealed her detours, coffee shops, a loft downtown, places she never mentioned. I cross-referenced dates with the receipt, building a timeline. One evening, I followed her, my car a shadow in the rain-soaked streets. She parked outside a studio, Elliot's name on the buzzer. I waited, heart pounding. As they emerged, her laughter cutting through the drizzle. They didn't touch, but their proximity screamed intimacy. I drove home, numb, the engineer in me analyzing every detail for flaws in my plan. I began collecting evidence, screenshots, location logs, even a voice recorder hidden in her purse. Each piece was a brick in the wall I was building, not to save our marriage, but to fortify my resolve. Clara noticed my distance, asking if I was okay. I lied, mirroring her deception, my smile a mask. I stopped sleeping, my nights spent planning, not just confrontation, but retribution. I wanted her to feel the weight of her betrayal, to understand the collapse she'd engineered. I researched Elliot, learning his routines, his clients, his vulnerabilities. My mind, once focused on bridges, now constructed a different kind of framework, one designed to dismantle their affair with surgical precision. Revenge, I learned, is a cold calculus requiring patience and precision. I didn't want a shouting match or a tearful confession. I wanted Clara and Elliot to unravel in a way that left no doubt about my control. I began with Elliot's career. He was freelance, reliant on reputation. Using an anonymous email, I contacted his major clients, planting doubts about his professionalism. Missed deadlines, questionable ethics. I fabricated just enough to make it plausible, attaching doctored correspondence. Within weeks, his social media hinted at lost contracts, his posts tinged with frustration. For Clara, I targeted her heart, her art. I accessed her firm's server, subtly altering her portfolio files, introducing errors that would embarrass her in front of her team. I sent anonymous tips to her boss about her distractions. At home, I played the devoted husband, cooking her favorite meals, suggesting weekend getaways, all while watching her squirm under the pressure of her crumbling world. She grew irritable, snapping at small things, her guilt a silent scream I could almost hear. I wasn't done. I planned a public unraveling, a moment where their betrayal would be exposed to everyone they valued. I booked a venue for her next gallery event, ensuring both were invited, and began crafting a presentation that would blend her designs with the photos I'd found. A slideshow of truth. My heart, once broken, was now a machine, each beat fueling a cruel, calculated vengeance. My plan was a bridge under construction, each piece carefully placed to bear the weight of my intent. Clara's world was fraying, and I watched it unravel with a detached satisfaction. Her firm had started questioning her work, the altered files I'd planted sowing doubt about her competence. She'd come home drained, her usual spark dimmed, muttering about technical glitches and unfair scrutiny. I'd nod sympathetically, offering a glass of wine, my words soft but my mind sharp. Elliot, too, was faltering. My anonymous emails had cost him 2 major clients, and his online presence grew erratic, posts about bad luck and betrayals. I felt no pity. He'd trespassed into my life, and I was rewriting his. At home, Clara's phone buzzed less, her secret smiles replaced by furrowed brows. I kept up my facade, planning our anniversary dinner while secretly finalizing the gallery event. I'd secured a projector, ensuring the slideshow would be the night's centerpiece. The photos of her and Elliot, interspersed with her designs, would tell a story no one could ignore. I rehearsed the moment in my mind. Her colleagues' gasps, Elliot's frozen shock, Clara's world collapsing in a room full of witnesses. Yet a part of me wavered. Late at night, staring at her sleeping form, I remembered the woman who'd danced with me in the rain, who'd believed in my dreams. Was I destroying her or saving myself? I pushed the thought aside, focusing on the logistics, invitations sent, catering confirmed, every detail engineered for maximum impact. My revenge was no longer just personal. It was a performance, a public execution of their deceit. Maintaining normalcy was my greatest challenge. Clara, despite her stress, began to notice my detachment. "Are you sure you're okay?" she'd ask, her eyes searching mine. I'd smile, touch her hand, and lie with a fluency that surprised me. "Just work," I'd say, steering the conversation to her day, probing for cracks in her story. She'd deflect, talking about clients or deadlines, but her voice lacked conviction. I wondered if she sensed the storm brewing. Meanwhile, I tightened my grip on Elliot's downfall. I created a fake profile, posing as a potential client, and booked a meeting with him at a cafe. I watched from across the street as he arrived, hopeful, only to wait in vain for a no-show. His slumped shoulders as he left were a small victory. I escalated, leaking a rumor to a local art blog about his unreliable work ethic, citing anonymous sources. The post gained traction, further eroding his reputation. For Clara, I planted subtle traps, leaving the La Lune receipt on the counter, watching her reaction. She froze, then laughed it off as a work dinner. But her eyes betrayed her. I didn't push, letting her squirm in the silence. The gallery event loomed, 2 weeks away, and I finalized the slideshow, syncing it to music that would amplify the drama. I invited her entire firm, her friends, even her parents, framing it as a surprise to celebrate her talent. She was thrilled, oblivious to the guillotine I'd built. My heart, once heavy with betrayal, now thrived on the anticipation of her reckoning. A week before the event, an unexpected variable entered my equation. Sarah, Clara's best friend and a fellow designer, called me out of the blue. We'd always been cordial, but her tone was urgent. "Can we meet? It's about Clara." My pulse quickened, suspecting she'd uncovered my plan. We met at a quiet diner, her face pale. "I know about Elliot," she said, her voice low. "I saw them together at his studio. I didn't want to believe it, but—" She trailed off, guilt in her eyes. I stayed calm, masking my rage, and asked for details. Sarah described stolen moments, overheard calls, Clara's excuses mirroring those she'd given me. I realized Sarah could be an asset. I confided just enough. My hurt, my need for clarity, omitting my revenge. She agreed to help, promising to watch Clara, to report any slip-ups. I gave her access to the tracking app, framing it as a way to protect Clara from herself. Sarah's loyalty to me, born of disgust at Clara's betrayal, was a windfall. She texted me updates. Clara and Elliot meeting at a park, their faces tense, as if arguing. I used this to refine my slideshow, adding a recent photo Sarah sent. Clara and Elliot, hands clasped, oblivious to her lens. The event was now a collaborative effort, though Sarah didn't know the full scope. I felt a twisted gratitude, her betrayal of Clara mirroring Clara's betrayal of me. The irony wasn't lost, but it fueled my resolve. The stage was set, the players in place, and I was ready to pull the curtain. The days before the gallery event were a blur of precision and paranoia. I double-checked every detail, the projector, the guest list, the catering, the slideshow's seamless flow. I titled it Clara's Vision, a cruel irony that made me smirk. The photos were curated for impact. Professional shots of her designs fading into intimate candids with Elliot, each transition a gut punch. I tested the setup at the venue, a chic downtown loft, ensuring the screen was visible from every angle. At home, Clara was distracted, her stress palpable. She'd snapped at me over a spilled coffee, then apologized, citing work pressure. I played the doting husband, suggesting a spa day to relax before her big night. She accepted, unaware I'd use her absence to plant the final piece. A printed photo of her and Elliot slipped into her sketchbook, where she'd find it post-event. I wanted her to know I'd known, that her exposure wasn't random. Sarah kept me updated. Clara and Elliot had met again, their conversation heated, possibly sensing their worlds collapsing. I savored their panic, knowing it was my doing. I also sent an anonymous tip to a local gossip columnist, hinting at a scandalous reveal at the event, ensuring media presence. My revenge was no longer just personal. It was a spectacle, designed to humiliate them in front of their peers, their families, their city. I felt like an architect of chaos, my blueprint flawless. Yet, as the event neared, a flicker of doubt resurfaced. Was I becoming the monster I despised? I buried it, focusing on the countdown. The night would redefine us all. The gallery event arrived, a crisp evening that felt charged with electricity. The loft buzzed with guests. Clara's colleagues, friends, her parents, even Elliot, who I'd ensured was invited. Clara glowed in a navy dress, mingling with a nervous energy, unaware of the bomb I'd planted. I moved through the crowd, shaking hands, my smile a perfect mask. Sarah was there, her eyes meeting mine with a nod, our secret alliance unspoken. The catering was impeccable, the wine flowed, and the atmosphere was festive, until I signaled the MC to start the presentation. The lights dimmed, and Clara's vision lit up the screen. Her early designs drew applause, her talent undeniable. Then the shift. Photos of her and Elliot, laughing, touching, their affair laid bare. Gasps rippled through the room. Clara froze, her face ashen. As the slideshow looped, each image a hammer blow. Elliot stood rigid, his eyes darting for an exit. Whispers turned to murmurs. Her parents' faces crumpled, her boss's jaw tight. I stepped to the podium, my voice steady. "This is Clara's true vision," I said. "A betrayal of trust, of love." The room was silent, the weight of my words crushing. Clara's eyes met mine, not with anger, but with a raw, pleading despair. I felt a pang, but it was fleeting. The columnist's camera flashed, capturing her ruin. Guests began to leave, their discomfort palpable. Elliot slipped out, his career in tatters. Clara approached me, tears streaming, but I turned away. The photo in her sketchbook awaited her, my final twist of the knife. My revenge was complete, but as I stood in the emptying loft, I felt no triumph, only the hollow echo of a life dismantled. The morning after the gallery event, our home felt like a mausoleum, the air thick with the ghosts of last night's devastation. Clara hadn't come home until dawn, her eyes red, her voice hoarse from crying. I sat at the kitchen table, coffee untouched, as she stood in the doorway, clutching her sketchbook. She'd found the photo I'd planted, her and Elliot, a frozen moment of her betrayal. "You knew," she whispered. Not a question, but a surrender. I nodded, my face a stone wall, refusing to offer her the comfort she sought. She tried to explain, words tumbling about stress, loneliness, Elliot's charm. But they were hollow, excuses I'd predicted and dismissed. I stood, my voice cold. "You built this, Clara. You chose him." She flinched, as if my words were physical blows. I left her there, retreating to my study, where I replayed the event. The gasps, the shame in her eyes, the click of the columnist's camera. The local gossip blog had already posted, the headline screaming, "Designer's Scandal Unveiled." Social media buzzed, her name trending for all the wrong reasons. Elliot's profiles went dark, his reputation in ruins. I'd expected satisfaction, a sense of justice, but instead, I felt a void, a structural failure in my own heart. Clara's sobs echoed through the house, and for a moment, I wondered if I'd gone too far. But I remembered the receipt, the photos, her laughter with him, and hardened myself. This was her consequence, not mine. Yet, as I stared at our wedding photo on the desk, I questioned what I'd salvaged from the wreckage. The fallout spread like cracks in a foundation. Clara's firm placed her on indefinite leave, citing professional misconduct after the public humiliation. Her colleagues, once friends, distanced themselves, their texts unanswered, their invitations revoked. Her parents called me, their voices heavy with disappointment, asking why I'd chosen such a cruel reveal. I deflected, saying I'd acted to protect my truth, but their silence lingered, a judgment I hadn't anticipated. Sarah, my unwitting ally, was the exception. She visited, her loyalty now fully mine, recounting how Clara had confessed everything to her, begging for forgiveness. I listened, impassive, but Sarah's updates fed my need to know Clara's suffering. Elliot, I learned, had left town. His studio lease terminated. His name poison in Portland's art scene. I'd orchestrated his exile, yet it felt like a hollow victory. The city, once our shared canvas, now whispered about us. Neighbors avoided eye contact. Friends sent cautious texts, unsure whose side to take. I threw myself into work, analyzing blueprints with a fervor that masked my unrest. At night, Clara and I existed in parallel, her in the guest room, me in our bed, the space between us a chasm. She tried to bridge it, leaving notes, apologies, pleas for a conversation, but I ignored them, my revenge now a silent, ongoing punishment. I began to notice her fading, her vibrancy dulled, her sketchbook untouched. A part of me wanted to stop, to rebuild, but the engineer in me saw only the damage, the trust too fractured to repair. 3 weeks after the event, Clara's desperation pierced my armor. She cornered me in the living room, her eyes hollow, her hands trembling. "I'll do anything," she said, her voice breaking. "Therapy, transparency, whatever you need. Please, don't let this end us." Her vulnerability stirred memories. Our first date, her laugh at my terrible jokes, the way she traced my blueprints with awe. I wanted to believe her, to salvage something from the ruins, but the images of her with Elliot flashed, unyielding. I told her I needed time, a half-truth that bought me space to wrestle with my conflict. I met with a divorce lawyer, not to file, but to understand my options, the cold pragmatism of it grounding me. He outlined asset division, alimony, the mechanics of dissolution, and I realized how clinical Betrayal's endgame could be. Meanwhile, I monitored Clara's movements, the tracking app still active, though her outings were few: grocery stores, a therapist's office, her parents' house. Sarah reported Clara's breakdowns, her guilt consuming her, and I felt a twisted satisfaction, yet also a growing unease. Was my revenge now a cage I'd built for myself? I started seeing a therapist too, a secret I kept, unpacking the rage that had driven me. He asked what I wanted, justice or peace, and I had no answer. At home, Clara's efforts persisted. Dinners cooked, my favorite books dusted, small gestures of atonement. I ate her meals in silence, neither rejecting nor accepting, my heart a battleground between vengeance and the faint hope of reconciliation. The scandal refused to fade. A local magazine ran a feature on Portland's art scene drama, dissecting Clara's fall with gleeful detail. My name appeared too, the wronged husband whose bold reveal sparked debate. Some called me a hero for exposing deceit. Others labeled me vindictive, a man who'd weaponized love. The attention was suffocating. I avoided cafes where whispers followed, deleted my social media to escape the noise. Clara, meanwhile, became a pariah, her once vibrant network severed. She stopped leaving the house, her world shrinking to our walls. One evening, I found her staring at the oak tree in our yard, where we'd married. "I ruined everything," she said, not looking at me. I wanted to agree, to twist the knife, but something stopped me, her fragility, perhaps, or my own exhaustion. I began to question the permanence of my revenge. Had I meant to destroy her forever, or just to make her feel my pain? I contacted the gossip columnist anonymously, asking her to drop the story, hoping to quiet the storm. She refused, citing public interest, and I realized my plan had taken on a life of its own. Sarah, still loyal, suggested I forgive Clara, arguing she'd suffered enough. I bristled. She didn't know the depth of my hurt, but her words lingered. I started leaving Clara's notes unanswered, not out of cruelty, but indecision. The engineer in me craved a blueprint for what came next, but life offered no such clarity. I was adrift, my revenge a completed project that left me questioning its cost. One rainy afternoon, I found Clara's sketchbook open on the kitchen table, a new drawing inside. A shattered bridge, its pieces falling into a void, her signature scrawled in the corner. It was a confession, a mirror to my own destruction. I sat, staring at it, the weight of our shared ruin settling in. That night, I broke my silence, asking her to talk. We sat in the living room, the space between us heavy but no longer impenetrable. She spoke of her shame, how Elliot had been an escape from her own insecurities, how she'd hated herself every moment. I listened, not absolving but understanding. I admitted my role, the tracking, the sabotage, the gallery's cruelty. She flinched, learning the extent of my vengeance, but nodded, as if she'd expected it. I deserved it, she said, and I hated how her self-loathing echoed my own. We didn't decide our future that night, but we agreed to try therapy together, a tentative step towards something undefined. I dismantled the tracking app, burned the receipt, deleted the slideshow files, rituals to bury my revenge. The city's gossip faded, replaced by newer scandals, and Clara began sketching again. Small pieces, private, for herself. I returned to my blueprints, finding solace in their logic, but now saw them differently, not just structures but possibilities for repair. Our marriage, like a damaged bridge, might never regain its original form, but I began to believe it could bear weight again, if we rebuilt carefully. The cruelty I'd unleashed was a shadow I'd carry, but in its wake, I glimpsed a chance to mend, not just her, but me.